Welcome to the Big Success Show. Today, 4 ways writing helps you succeed.
Big Success with the Professor and Mary Lynn.
It's back to school time, and we are doing a 10-part series on lifelong learning. We kicked it all off with 3 shows, or we're kicking it all off, I should say, with 3 shows on the 3 R's. Remember the 3 R's, Mary Lynn?
The 3 R's of learning.
Reading and writing and arithmetic.
There you go, singing again.
I know.
You're singing every show now.
Now, it occurs to me, though, that, the 3 R's, I don't know, I guess they think we're gullible because only one of them actually starts with an R. Reading. Writing starts with a W, and arithmetic starts with an A, at least the way I spell it.
Go figure.
Yes. Hi, I'm George Kruger, the Professor.
And I'm Mary Lynn. Now, last time we talked about 3 easy ways to get more out of reading. And if you missed that episode, I've got a link to it in your show notes. Now, today we're going to get into the second R, writing. That sounds like writing, but not spelled like writing. And this podcast episode is made possible by Rocketbook, reusable notebooks connected to the cloud. Let's pull out the professor's whiteboard for 4 ways writing helps you succeed.
You're going to be writing my obituary, Mary Lynn, if any more stuff falls out of that closet.
Yes, if you don't clean it out. Yes, definitely. All right, 4 ways writing helps you succeed. Number 1, take note. You need to take notes. Duly noted.
I agree. So this thought, as we were preparing for the show, it occurred to me how many people don't write. They don't take notes. It always amazes me at how few people take notes at training sessions or at meetings, at conferences.
Now, when you say that, do you mean like writing down notes, or do you mean typing notes, or doing neither? I'm
talking about either or. Okay. I think you do what works for you, but there is some reason, I think, to write it, but it's just a lot of people don't even come prepared to write it. Mm-hmm. I had one student who never took a single note through a whole semester, and he was one of my best students ever. Mm. Yeah, he's got some kind of, the right kind of mindset, but most people can't do that. I had a colleague who, it always cracked me up because we'd go somewhere for a meeting, and he would need a piece of paper and a pen, and he'd always have, do you have a piece of paper? Do you have a pen? And it's like, if it happened once, I can understand, you left your pen and paper at home. But every single time, it's like... Did
you ever say, hey, did you know you can go buy notebooks?
It became a standing joke.
Oh, okay.
So of course I have a piece of paper. So I don't have any empirical evidence to show for this, but I think that most successful people are prodigious note takers. And Marilyn, I'm talking about business colleagues. I'm talking about executives I know. I'm talking about students. I'm talking about employees. You run the gamut.
Talking about your co-business partner.
Yes. Successful people take notes.
Do you think that they succeed because they take notes, or are there other characteristics involved which leads to this propensity for taking notes, which then propels them to success? I guess is the secret to success note-taking.
You're trying to bait me, aren't you? Yeah. That's a great question, Marilyn, and I don't really have an answer to it. I would just guess that note-taking is a part of, and may I add, a significant part of success.
Yes.
The success formula. So, it reminds me of something my dad used to say, a short pencil is better than a long memory. I love that quote from Dad. Yes. And I don't think it's original to Dad, but he always would say that a short pencil's better than a long memory. And, I saw a survey a little while ago of leaders, and it was asking them what they wanted in an employee. And one of the top skills that leaders were asking for was the ability to take good notes. Now, why is that?
Well, so you go to a meeting, there's the action plan.
Yes.
And if you haven't written down the action plan, guess who you're going to have to go back and ask?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they said is, I don't want to waste time giving instructions again.
Right.
And so I think it's so important for all of us to understand the value of taking good notes.
The act of taking notes not only helps you recall it later with less effort, but it also helps you digest the material more fully. You learn faster which means you reach big success faster.
That's exactly right.
Go. So the shortcut is to take notes. All right, 4 ways writing helps you succeed. Number 2, write with purpose, on purpose. Whereas reading, which we talked about in the previous episode, involves comprehending a message, writing is all about crafting a message. They're both communication, which is an absolutely vital skill today.
Yeah, and one of the chief skills is learning how to word your message so your reader not only understands it, but it helps move things forward.
Here's a great example. And actually, you taught me this.
Oh, go ahead then. I mean,
and it is something that we can all relate to. So it's about email. And this is an email that I wrote to a client just this week. I actually have 2 questions for this client that I want answered. But thanks to the professor's coaching long ago, I realized that if I want answers to both questions, I need to ask one. Because if I ask both questions, then the receiver might get a little confused. And the best thing to do, as we said here, to keep things moving forward is to ask the one question, get the answer to that, and then follow up and ask the second question. Even though I want the answer to both questions right now, because that would make my life easier.
Yes.
In the long run, as long as I get full answers to both questions individually, then that's going to be best.
I even have had people say this to me that, well, that's not true as you move up the chain, right? Up the ladder. The C-level, people, they can handle multiple questions all at once. That's what they would prefer. And it's so funny because the first time that anybody ever mentioned that to me, I had just finished a conversation with the CEO of a company, one of our vendors. And what I found was with this person and with top level executives, the best thing to do is deal with one thing at a time. Get one done, check it off, get the next one done.
And why is that?
Because we only have the ability to focus so much, right? And because we're going to get the answer back to one, whether we like it or not.
Well, I think, and that's what tends to happen, especially when you're dealing with and everybody's busy. So whether it's the CEO or not a CEO,
exactly.
If you ask a bunch of questions, you're likely only going to get the answer to one, and then you're going to have to follow up anyway.
Absolutely. And so this is an example of what we're talking about here is writing. It's a process with a purpose, and you have to keep that purpose in mind throughout the process.
And generally, the purpose is simply get the answer to one question.
There you go.
Or,
if it's in
email.
Marketing,
get people to act on one thing.
Yes.
Even though you want them to do multiple things, as our coach would always tell us,
yes.
You can only lead them to do one thing at a time.
The best ads, one idea, right? The best instructions, one idea. Get that idea out, then move on to the next one.
4 ways writing helps you succeed. Number 3, start with a blank sheet. When we talk about writing these days, we usually think of typing, right? Typing on our keyboard, whether it's the laptop or the phone. There may be value in taking a trip back in time, though, and doing it the old-fashioned way.
Yes. I mean, I think there are studies actually that say this, but I often find that when I'm planning the big picture, and that's big with 2 G's.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm planning the big picture and trying to set direction, it's helpful to sit down with just a blank sheet of paper and a pen. That's the only tools you need for this exercise other than your wonderful brain.
Right. Now, you may work better on your notebook or a laptop or whatever piece of technology that works for you. Do whatever does work for you. But there is something magical about the simplicity of the physical paper and pen that can't be fully replicated on a screen.
Absolutely right. And I love being in brainstorming mode, as you know, Mary Lynn. I mean,
yes, you are a big thinker.
I love ideas. I love just thinking about what could be, what's possible, that kind of stuff. But I think one of the benefits of pen and paper is you kind of get all the ideas right there in front of you. And when I'm using a word processor, I tend to edit a lot. When I write it down on paper, I may cross it off, but it's still there. And sometimes I find that it helps me to actually find a path that I may not have found otherwise because I've crossed it out, which gave me just a break from that thought for a second. But then as I continue working on ideas, something about that thought comes back to mind.
It's, we call that your brain dumps, right, Professor? And then in the past, what's usually happened is that, then you'll kind of formalize those thoughts and then type them up into a document that you then save on the laptop.
Yes.
Right. But that's why we've switched to using Rocketbook notebooks. You write as usual, like you always do, but with their special paper, then you can upload that document digitally and instantly. So you don't have to go through the process of typing all that stuff out.
Absolutely.
And you also still have it in your brain dump format.
Yes.
So to speak. Because sometimes that's important too.
And my handwriting.
Right.
There's a little comfort in seeing your handwriting, right?
Yeah. And then what you can do is, and then you just kind of wipe away the notes on that page and start over. So what's great about Rocketbook is it helps us save time and paper. Learn more at bigsuccess.com/Rocketbook. We're talking about 4 ways writing helps you succeed. And number 4 is write for your most important audience. And that is you.
Yeah, our point here is that sometimes the most important audience for your writing is you. When you transfer your thoughts onto paper, magic happens. You may find your ideas aren't as fully fleshed out or developed as you thought. At least the two of us often do.
Yeah. It's amazing how getting your thoughts out of your head onto paper helps you build confidence and helps you fill the gaps. Because when it's floating around in your head, sometimes you don't see the full picture.
Yeah. Well, and I think, Marilyn, how many times it's like, okay, I need to write something. The very first thing I'm going to do is start walking around. And that's because you want to just get a little bit of the formality, the structure of the outline, and then you come and immediately start writing down your outline. And now we can start filling out that outline. And, it depends. If you're writing a 2-line email, you're not going to do this. But I'm just saying, like for more complex works even, this process of getting it in writing is so important because that allows your one idea to basically bounce off the next and the next and the next.
And sometimes you don't have the ability to put everything in an outline. You just have this idea and you just need to get that down on paper.
Yes.
And now you can build it out from there.
But the key thing we would encourage you to do is just thinking about you in the early stages. You're writing this for you and you're getting your thoughts down so that you can see, hey, do I have this pretty fully developed here, or do I see some gaps? And that is very, very helpful to get that process going and learn that quickly.
Right. And so this works for business ideas. This works for maybe a paper that you're working on if you're going to school.
Absolutely.
This works on maybe a complex email or some kind of a letter that you're needing to put out to staff or to your boss. Maybe you need to write a letter to your family.
Yes.
Anything that, again, you have a purpose and then there's something that you want to have happen to move things forward.
And let's really bring this full circle. It's about you. And sometimes you should write just for you. People write journals just for themselves. But like another example, Marilyn, I remember you wrote a letter to yourself and sealed it and mailed it to yourself when you left radio.
Right. When I left my profession to start my business.
And why did you do that?
Well, you told me that it would be a good idea.
Well, then it must be a good idea.
But it was because, when you're making big changes, and that's big with 2 G's, sometimes once you've made the change and you're in the unfamiliar, you'll start looking over your shoulder at what once was and start questioning whether you made the right move or not. Yep. And so by writing that letter to myself, I could go back and remind myself as to why I took the steps that I took. And so that was what that letter helped me do.
And if I may just add, the key thing is, the benefit is you've got a postmark, you've got a date, and it's official. It's not something you just wrote down. It's stamped.
Right. But again, you mentioned the journal before, and a lot of people use journals to help with achieving goals.
Absolutely.
I could have done that in journal form. Writing the letter to myself was more symbolic.
Yes.
But yes, journals are very helpful too in helping you be able to, formulate a plan for things that will help you move forward. So I think this has been a very interesting, helpful discussion. 4 ways that writing helps you succeed. Let's review those 4 ways. Number 1, be sure to take notes. 2, write with purpose on purpose. Number 3, start with a blank sheet. And number 4, write for your most important audience, you.
Getting your thoughts in writing makes the intangible tangible. You can physically see it instead of just seeing it in your mind. When you can see it, you can be it, and you can be a big success.
Lifelong learning isn't only good for you, it's profitable. Get our free ebook, Back to School for Adults, How to Profit from Lifelong Learning. Click the link in your show notes to get it.
We thank you so much for listening today. Special shout out to our listeners in Fort Collins, Colorado. Big salute.
We've been talking about the 3 R's you learn in school. We've done reading and writing. Next week is arithmetic. What is the professor of entrepreneurial finance groaning for over there?
I'm just sympathizing with all those people who really don't like arithmetic.
Oh, that would be me.
But the thing is, we're going to really show you something important about it.
Right, we're going to share the 2 things that you need to understand about money. Just 2 things.
Yep.
That's pretty simple.
That's right.
So join us next time. Until then,
here's to your big success.
Find big success at biggsuccess.com.